city based on industry, from market stalls to collieries, owners, directors and entrepreneurs. Oh, we've got all that and more. No matter how high you fly, no matter how far you go, the spotlight's on you and we call Wrexham home.
Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of the Wrexham Business Spotlight podcast, which is sponsored by AB Accountancy. My name's Adrian and today's guest is Fern, whose business is the Buttercup Vintage Van. Have I said that right, Fern?
Yeah, Caravan.
Caravan. So Fern, do you want to start just by talking about yourself and your business briefly?
Okay. So my name's Fern. I've been self-employed since the end of 2014. Originally had a bar in Wrexham Town Centre and then had that for about 4 years, moved to a little bistro in Llangollen. Then COVID happened and then I decided to go mobile, so I've now got a caravan that I serve food out of.
Okay, great. So that van, what sort of food does it do? What are the offerings people could find with you?
So we mainly do plant-based street food from the caravan. That's kind of been a thing that's developed over the years since I had the first bar. Sort of doing food and then the vegan options kind of taking over the meat options, and then I was able to open as completely vegan. Did really well, but then I had to move out of the building because the rent went extortionate. So I went to Llangollen and just had it 100% vegan in Llangollen, but then as I say, COVID. So most of the time we're 100% plant-based with the caravan. I have been asked to do some weddings and some different events that aren't, some are veggie, some are not strictly plant-based, but generally when I go out and about, we stick to that.
Okay. And obviously you're mobile, so there's no fixed location, but are there any set places people could find you? And
I'm always in Wrexham, first Saturday of the month, we do a market, which we'll talk about soon.
Okay.
So I'm always there one Saturday a month, and then generally just, I try and be as local as I can, so maybe Ruthin, sometimes Mould. But obviously, if I've got big events, I'll go a bit further. But I try to stay fairly close to home with it, really.
And then I guess you're publishing, is it social media, where you're going to be for people?
Yeah, I always put on our Facebook group where we're going to be sort of that week. I tend not to do it too far in advance because people just forget anyway. So I tend to do it that week. I do have a website, but I think that's more for the sort of the bigger bookings, the weddings and stuff, because I think people tend to get their information from social media more than physically go in to look at a website.
Agree, yeah. Definitely nowadays I find more traffic goes through our Facebook page and our website.
Yeah, I think the bigger events, people do want to see a website and not just because it's more the specific information in one place, isn't it? Whereas if you looked on Facebook, it'd be you have to scroll through a lot. But I think as far as what's going on this week I think people do prefer to be social media. I don't really use Twitter anymore though, maybe I should, but I think you've got to be really, really active on Twitter. You've got to
hit them algorithms.
Keep it, yeah. And I just don't think about it enough.
I think sometimes it's key to find one social media and do it well, rather than have a pour off on all of them.
I mean, I do Instagram again, but they're basically linked. Facebook and Instagram, they're just the same thing, really. They're just the same posts. But yeah, Twitter, I have got an account, but it's not Twitter anymore, is it?
No.
It's X.
Yeah.
I just think you've got to be a bit more vocal, otherwise stuff gets pushed down quite a bit, doesn't it? So,
yeah. So, just from your introduction there, you said you started back in 2014 and sort of led into doing vegan options. Was veganism as big in 2014 as it is now, or is that something you've seen grow?
It was so when I first started, it was just a bar. And then I'd had like a couple of chefs I had one that was like a franchise, he was supposed to be making his own money. He was sort of self-employed. That lasted about 3 months. And he went, and then I got another chef in that I employed. He was pretty good, but he was in a band, so he was quite committed to a lot of other things as well. So sort of in that meantime, when he couldn't be there, I was sort of taken over from him. And because I've got experience in kitchens and stuff. I've never been fully trained, but I've always cooked a lot, and we did a few vegan options when he was there, and then after he left it was sort of 50-50, and then so this is getting into about sort of 2017 sort of time now, and then as I say, we ended up having like 2 meat options on the menu, and everything else was plant-based. I think we had like a chicken burger and a beef burger. And then it just got to the point where they weren't really selling, which it was just really strange. People were coming in, because I think, a lot of people didn't really mind that we still served some meat options. They just liked the fact that everything else was completely plant-based. And then, I sort of made the decision in the January of 2018 to, okay, we'll give it a go, and we'll just go completely, because at the end of the day, it's business, and you've got to go with what's happening and what presents itself to you. And I thought it's worth the risk, and it paid off, and it was really popular. I don't think there was anywhere at the time, certainly not in Wrexham. I think it was quite, because we were on ITV Wales News in about the March time.
I remember that, yeah.
So I think it was quite sort of, I'm not unique, I haven't invented it, but there wasn't many other people that had taken the plunge and sort of gone.
We're really focusing on it, yeah.
So it worked really well, and then unfortunately I just had real trouble with the landlords, and just everything that goes on with business. It was really difficult to be there. It was a big building, it was expensive. They basically wanted to double the rent of what I was already paying. I found out a lot later that was because they'd already made a deal with the co-op for them to take the building on.
So it was the old Fat Cat building, wasn't it? Yeah.
So that, I didn't know that at the time, but they were trying to get me to agree a £36,000 a year rent, and I was just really battling with them and saying it's impossible. Nobody will pay that. That's a lot of pints of beer, isn't it? Yeah, exactly. And you wouldn't get. And I was even sending them listings of other bars that were up for rent and saying, look, this is, because they were based in London, so in my opinion, it was like they haven't really got a clue of what to expect around here. And I battled for months, and they just, as I say, it turns out it was because they'd already had an offer, and it's now a co-op. So. I was really doing really well, and then my mum had said to me, well, I understand your reasons for wanting to leave here, because it doesn't make sense to be paying that kind of money, but you can't give up, you've got to take it somewhere else. So we managed to find a place in Llangollen. About 6 months later we opened there, and that just did the same thing. 100% plant-based, really popular, really busy. We opened in the April. I was a bit worried about the winter months, because you sort of get told that Llangollen is really quiet in the winter and they don't get any tourists, and but we did really well, and there were still people. I chose to stay open in January, which a lot of people don't bother in Llangollen, but it really served as well to do that, because there wasn't really anywhere else open. So even people that weren't vegan or vegetarian were coming there, and then that March was COVID, so it just sort of all.
So we have an office in Llangollen, so I spend a fair amount of time there. It is obviously quieter in the winter, but there is still a decent amount of people around. And actually, speaking to some locals that we now know up there, they don't really go out in the summer. They don't like that the whole place gets taken over by tourists. In the winter, they feel like they get their time back. So they probably eat out in the winter quite a lot. We were finding that, as I say, there were still people. But then even the sort of few tourists that you did have, they were coming in January, and they were like, oh, everywhere's closed. Nobody. But I can understand why other businesses would close in January, because it's not, sometimes can't be financial, especially if you've got staff, you're not going to be able to cover your costs. But also it's a break, it's, if you're open the rest of the year, then I understand. And I was thinking of doing the same, but I thought, because of the Veganuary thing as well, I thought, let's give it a go, let's stay open. And it did pay off, and we were busy right up until that, what was it, nasty March 20. Yeah. So it was definitely, I'd probably still be there now if that hadn't happened, but it did. That's and we work with it. So we'll go straight into that then. What impact did it have on you? Obviously, it impacted all businesses in different ways, and it's sounds like it's impacted you. I think it was just. I've been through everything with business. I've had all the ups and downs, and I think it's the not knowing, it's the unknown, it's the. When I was leaving Set the Bar, that was after 4 years of being there, and it was I put my heart and soul into it. I put everything I had into it, not just money, but everything. And it broke my heart to have to finally make that decision and say, I'm going to go. And I think, but I built myself up, and I just thought it's for the best, and it's the right thing to do. And there would be absolutely no point trying to stay and trying to raise that money that, to pay that rent and every, and the rates and everything else. And I built myself up from that. And, I knew that I would find somewhere. I didn't know when, but, and I did. And
And I think the thing with COVID was there was just no end in sight with it. There was no sort of solution because we just didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
We didn't know when. Originally it was 3 weeks, was it? We were supposed to, everything was going to be back to normal in 3 weeks. And
say it off in 3 weeks.
And it literally went. I mean, I think it was probably 18 months before we could, probably even longer than that, before you could have really properly opened, just back to normal. And that just, there's just no, I think even if you'd known that, you'd think, really, am I going to be paying rent for 18 months and not be able to open it? Because even when we did open in, I think it was the July, maybe, you could open outdoors, or you could have social distancing, because it was such a small building, it wasn't even really worth doing that. I'd sort of open at the weekends and people would sit outside, but then, we had to close again. And it was just that unknown. It was, if there was some sort of firm thing in sight that, right, in this month you'll be able to go back to normal, then maybe it would have been easier. But I just think that constant.
From what I could see, obviously working with a range of businesses in all different industries, your industry was the toughest one to deal with.
Oh yeah, I mean,
by far, because the nature of it is obviously a business that wants people to socialise and to go out. I know a lot of people transition to doing home deliveries, but that's not perfect.
Yeah, I mean,
especially when you're reliant on tourists for your trades.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. And I did do that. I did, but then I found that because I'd started in Wrexham, even a lot of my customers in Llangollen were still from Wrexham. So when I was doing home deliveries, a lot of them were in Wrexham. So I was travelling from Wrexham down to Llangollen to prepare food, and then coming back, because I used to do it. I'd get a certain amount of deliveries on a Friday and Saturday night. They'd book in advance. We'd have these share boxes, so it was just a set thing that people were having. You'd get the orders, they'd give you their addresses, and then I'd just take them all in one go in a big, hot, polystyrene hot box, and do them all, and then I'd go home. But they'd all be in Wrexham, so I was driving to, not that it's that far, but it just sort of seemed the only thing I'm using this building for is because of all the thing with the HO. Obviously, if you're preparing in your own house, you have to have that whole new inspection. So it wasn't worth trying to go through that. It was just, I'll just do it in the kitchen of Llangollen. But it was just coming back again. So I did try everything. I mean, I'd signed on to Universal Credit as everybody had to, really. And it made me laugh. I mean, I've worked since I was 15. I've always worked. And the patronising sort of, oh, well, have you thought about doing deliveries? No, didn't think of that. Really sort of, because you did just have to think on your toes and just think, I'll try this. I was open outside, and it just, in the end, I think to be honest, if I hadn't been through what I went through, closing Set the Bar and basically starting again pretty much from nothing, I had no money left, I'm building it all up again in Llangollen, I think I just couldn't do it again. I think I just sort of, it was so close to doing it once that I just thought I haven't got the energy to be, not knowing where I stand and everything. But a lot of people were in the same boat, weren't they? A lot of people just were completely, had the rug pulled from under them and just had to think on their feet. And I mean, there's a lot of people that still kept their jobs throughout it, the key workers, aren't there? But I think a lot of people that were self-employed just didn't really know what to do.
And I found for a lot of industries, the support network really did help keep a lot of businesses in place.
Yeah, there were a lot
for all the criticism, for the furloughs and the self-employed grants.
I mean, we were
definitely helped people.
We had premises grants, but that basically covered the rent. It didn't cover a wage. That basically went to my landlord, and I mean, we spent a little bit of it on getting outside chairs and tables and stuff, and trying to make some provisions for things changing a bit. But basically, that was on the business. That wasn't. Because I think because of the break I'd had in self-employment from when we left Set the Bar in October and I was open again in April, something to do with that there not being a continuous thing. I wasn't entitled to any sort of self-employment thing. So there was a whole
raft of people that fell through the gaps. You had to have the previous tax return in place.
Yeah, exactly.
It was based
so I
on
didn't
that
get anything. But,
a lot of people who'd started self-employment in the last 6 months.
Yeah, couldn't work. I mean, as I say, it covered the rent and it covered what we needed to open, but it didn't give me any money, And I was lucky that I was living at home and didn't really have many outgoings other than, my car and my phone bill, and I didn't really have any rent to pay or anything. So I was lucky in that perspective that I wasn't struggling, to pay, because my mum worked in the university, so she was covered by that. So and they got to work from home as well. So I know a lot of people didn't get that luxury of, a lot of people were still having to pay a lot of bills, and and it's,
it was some tough times.
I mean, it's crazy talking about it now, isn't it? Because it seems like a lifetime ago.
It does feel a long time ago, doesn't it?
Yeah. And especially remembering sort of the timeline of it, it all sort of gets into a blur in the end, doesn't it? You forget sort of how long it was between things happening, but I think we're mostly on the other side of it now, aren't we?
So your current business then is a mobile van, no fixed costs, you're not paying rent. Is that as a direct result of what you've experienced?
Yeah, I
twice
think so.
Before,
I mean, I
guess?
pay £27 a month to keep it in a little storage area. So that's my rent. So that's that's all I have to pay when I'm not using it. I think we just found that I was still paying rent. I mean, obviously the grant had to cover a lot of that in the one plan. But it was paying rent when you couldn't even use the building. And even when we did sort of start to open up, sometimes Llangollen wasn't anywhere near as busy as it had been. So even when things were a bit more normal, it was still, you were having to be there, a set amount of days, a set amount of times, and you didn't even know if you'd take any money. And I'd started in between leaving Set the Bar and going into Llangollen. I'd started doing little festivals. I think the first one I did was Llangollen Food Festival. And then I've done the Victoria Market in Wrexham. So I'd kind of started getting a bit of a taste for doing like street food type things. And I liked that it was different and you could kind of put yourself out there.
Yeah.
And then I found with that, people were asking me if I wanted to do this festival or this thing. And I was like, I can't really now because I've got a premises. Because, so I've got to be here. And is it worth closing for a weekend and I'm doing this instead? So I think by the time it got to the what do we do? Do we stick it out? Or and I just thought, what?
You had a viable alternative.
Let's just because again, my mum, was very you can't just give up. You can't just stop completely. You've got a good thing. You've got a good sort of loyal customer base. You need to sort of keep it going in some way. So that's how originally I intended on buying a ready fitted unit that was ready to go, but it didn't work out that way. I ended up doing a lot of work on one. So but I wouldn't now I wouldn't change it for the world. The flexibility of it, and as you say, not paying the rent. If there is a month that I can't use it because I'm busy doing other things, it's not costing me anything, or I'm not sort of feeling guilty about I'm paying rent for this. And I'm not.
So in terms of someone looking at your business model and wanting to do something similar, the advantages there of flexibility you've talked about, and we're not committed to a big rent and rates.
Yeah.
What's the downsides of this business model?
I think if it's, this specific thing in the sense of food, actually saying that, even if you're any kind of trader, outdoor trader that relies on markets and stuff, obviously your big factor is weather and things being cancelled or, poor turnout or poor advertising. I think if you've got your own premises, the getting the word out there is very much on you, and you can choose how much you promote that or where you promote it, and you're basically in charge of who's coming to your business. Whereas if you're doing a market or a food festival or whatever, you can only promote it a certain extent. You also need the people that are running it to promote it and to make sure that it gets a good turnout. And there obviously are a lot of things that don't get that sort of people. Sometimes people think they can just put a market on and people will turn up, and it doesn't necessarily work that way. And so I think you're a bit more reliant on other people, and also from a case of you could agree to do a market and then you could turn up and there's only 5 traders there, and therefore people aren't really going to support it. And again, you're not really in charge of that. So it does have its downsides.
Do you do any sort of due diligence before you go to markets? Do you ask how many stallholders they've got?
I definitely ask sort of about the food options, because with doing street food, you can have 40 stalls of all different things, and people will they'll at least look at every one, and they probably buy from several different ones. I think even if you've got cakes and cheese and things like that, people will still buy different things, whereas they're only really going to eat one type of hot food while they're at that market. They're not going to go to. So if you've got 10 food traders, you're really dividing your custom. You're
looking at 10% of the trade.
So, exactly. Whereas if there's just a few, and that even more with if there's another vegan or vegetarian thing there, it's completely pointless for me to do anything if there's another vegan or vegetarian trader, because the custom that I'm definitely guaranteed to get, I'm not going to get if it's, you know, if it's, so I do ask about that, and there aren't many about at the moment. I don't think there's certainly not many vegan ones, but even, you know, with regards to food, because a lot of the stuff I do, like a lot of the time I do things like nachos and mac and cheese, and even though they're vegan, they're still really popular with non-vegans. So I still get trade from people that, you know, say if there's a burger van there, some people might not want a burger, they might want
So
something
just fancy
different.
nachos that
Yeah,
day.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I do that. But yeah, it's some people that organise things are very closed off about, you know, who else is there or whatever. So you've just got to do your research sort of independently, I think, and try and. But if something's new, then you got to see.
Give it a go, haven't you?
Yeah. Exactly.
Do you find there's enough options to trade at? There's enough markets around and events you can go to?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's plenty going on. It's just whether, you know, you want to travel or you know. And I mean, I've done some things that it hasn't worth me going, but that's only from a vegan point of view, not a market point of view. Just because some things it doesn't translate well, or I mean, I've done mold a few times, and there's not really the, you know, I love doing it there, and it's a really great, even just the Saturday market, it's a really great market, it's really well attended, but there's not many vegans there, so it's one of those you just have to sort of try it out, and but then there's some things that are so far away that, I mean, I was asked to do there's a vegan market I did one in Colwyn Bay, and then there was one in, the same people that organised it, in Bangor. And I really would love to have done it, but I just thought, it's just so far away. It's an hour and a half. It's up the A55. I've got a 45-year-old Caravan on the back. I just don't.
And it's an extra cost at the risk of not having a good day somewhere you don't know,
That's
isn't
the
it?
thing, and it's so far away. And you know, if you're coming back late, it's just. I mean, I don't like going down that road at the best of times, but so it's just weighing things up. I mean, maybe I should be a bit more, you know, a bit less lazy and go a bit further afield. But I just think if it's weddings and stuff, I mean, I did a wedding this year in Llanidloes, and that, you know, that was great, and it was a lovely place, and everybody was lovely. So I think it's more maybe if you've got a guaranteed, because at a wedding is you're paid this amount of money, aren't you? And whereas you do a market and you have no idea, you can take £10, you can take £1,000, you just don't know.
Is weddings something you're looking to get into more?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, I need to put myself out there a little bit more. I've got a couple lined up, but then saying that, I wouldn't want to do them. They're quite a lot of work, so I don't think I'd want to do them that frequently. You know, it's maybe one a month, one every 2 months would be ideal. But I think, you know, I definitely, certainly in the summer, I wouldn't want to be doing one every week or 2 weeks. It just because it's so much involved in it. That I don't know how people do it every week. But again, maybe I'm just really lazy.
I always look at weddings, and we've got some clients in the wedding industry. It looks a really tough industry to be in, to me. Dealing with the people who demand absolute perfection on that day.
Yeah.
And so
because I mean, I've got a friend that's got a wedding bar business, and when I was in between work, I helped him a lot just on the bars, and you'll have some people that are absolutely amazing, and then you'll just have people that everything is a problem, and it just, you know, it's and I can understand when you're paying a lot of money, you want everything to be perfect, but I think there are people. I mean, I'm really lucky. The 2 weddings I did this year. I'm saying last year, I'm already in 2024. This year, both couples were just the nicest people you could have asked for, and were just absolutely amazing. You know, so, but you know, you're not going to know that until you've kind of already agreed to it and already signed your life away for that for that particular weekend, and it's really hard to determine that, isn't it? And unfortunately, some people will just they think they own you for a certain amount of time because you're doing their wedding. And as I say, I can see it from both sides in a way, but I don't think there's any need to be so sort of like bridezilla, as they say. Like,
I was trying not to use
really,
that term, but you
but
can use it.
I've done it. No, it's as I say, I've been really lucky. The 2 couples that I had were great, and just really down to earth, and just really, you know, that there was no sort of, because I think a lot of weddings these days, people just get carried away, and they spend so much money on, it's basically for other people. They're not even really, you know, a lot of the money they spend is to impress their guests, and it really gets lost, the fact that you're supposed to be marrying somebody you love, and it's supposed to be a day celebrating that, and So I've been lucky that the two that I've done have been really small, cozy, lovely crowd of people. So just more like that would be nice.
So if you're getting married and you're nice people only, get in touch with Fern.
Yeah.
So what challenges do you think this business faces?
Just as I say, I suppose a little bit, it is a little bit unknown as well. It's the same as I'm saying about the COVID thing. But I mean, it's just, because even when you do events, like, I mean, I've done the Victoria Market for, I think this will be my 5th year this year, the Christmas market. But so I did 3, I think, just with a tent and some tables. And then last year was the first year I did it with the Caravan. And I've always taken a lot of money at them, like probably £1,000 in the day. So last year I was really prepared for that. And I think I took £450.
Okay.
So that's still, I find, especially for a vegan thing, it's a fantastic
But I guess
amount
that
of money
creates
in a
your
day.
problems in terms of how much stock you've got.
Exactly,
prepared.
and that is the problem. And I really went all out last year, and I made my own vegan cheese. I did like little fake bacon strips out of temper. I try not to use too many like fake meat products, so I try to make whatever I can. I mean, I made the cheese out of cashew. So I put a lot of effort in, a lot of money, made all these Christmassy things, and so the outlay I didn't really make much money because I'd spent so much of it on stock. Whereas I think this year I'm just gonna, because I mean, I worry about always doing the same food. And I don't want people thinking I'm like being lazy or I can't be bothered thinking of anything else. But if I don't do mac and cheese, people that have come there before go, why haven't you got mac and cheese on? And I'm like, you're not bored of it yet? Like, or nachos. Like, I've been doing nachos forever. Like, I'm bored of them. But if I don't do them, people are like, why haven't you got nachos on?
I must admit, I do like your nachos.
It just, so I'm stuck between this thing of, well, I don't want people thinking I'm a one-trick pony and I can only do these dishes. But then if I don't do them, people are, and they're easy to make, and it's one of those that, like, say with mac and cheese, I can have loads of packets of pasta and I can just keep topping it up in the Caravan. I haven't got to do a lot of prep. I'm letting you into all the secrets of my business here.
You are, yeah.
But I haven't got to spend hours at home prepping all this food that basically, if I don't sell it, either my boyfriend's eating it every day for the next week or it goes in the bin. And I don't like the food.
So he's the one who's really sick of mac and cheese. It's not the customers, is it?
That's what, it's the chili it is. He'd eat chili every day, I think. He just... Yeah. So it's what I don't like the food waste side of it either. It's not just the money. It's, I don't want to make all this food just for it to go to waste. So it's trying to keep levels, that if I can, just because if I get 10 packets of macaroni, they can stay there for, I don't even know how long. How long does pasta last for? A while. The same with like nachos. If they're not opened, they last a long time. So there's not as much wastage as if I'm making cashew cheese, and then if I don't use it all, there's not much you can do with it. No. You could freeze it maybe, but I don't think it'd be very nice.
No, I can't.
So that is a big challenge. Is just the unknown is, at least when you do a wedding, you've got this amount of people, this food. Whereas when you do, especially if you do a new market or festival, how many people are going to be there? I mean, I get people, because I'm organising markets now, I get people asking me, well, how busy would it be? I'd love to be able to tell you. I don't know. You can't ever, I think, unless maybe you sell tickets for something. But I think even then, you could spend a £5 on a ticket for an event, and then it rains all weekend and you think, I'm not leaving the house. Yeah. I'm not bothered about that £5 that I spent. Yeah. So I think that is definitely the biggest challenge, is just the not being able to predict the future. Okay. In any business, I think.
I was going to say, that would be useful for every business, wouldn't
it?
Yeah, we'd all like to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So what's the future like for Buttercup? What plans have you got?
I mean, I think I'm just trying to sort of, I mean, I did this to have a bit more flexibility. That was the whole thinking behind getting something mobile. So I'm just trying to, I mean, I got myself a part-time job as well about 6 months ago. Just to take that pressure off. And in the beginning, I kind of felt a bit of a fraud, because I kind of felt like I'm supposed to be self-employed. I'm supposed to be a businesswoman. And I've gone and got a part-time job. And
there's lots and lots of businesses.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, I felt really guilty to begin with.
Run it as a side hustle or something.
It's my mum that spent this money on this Caravan. She had a payout from retiring from university, so she spent that money, and it's supposed to be a thing that we can make us more flexible, and she helped me all the time. But so getting this job, I did feel like it would seem like I was taking a backseat from it, but it basically, now that I'm 6-7 months into it, it basically means that my bills are paid, and I haven't got to, because sometimes I was dragging myself out at 5 o'clock in the morning to do markets that by the time I paid the pitch and pay for the food and everything else, I'd probably make 20 quid.
So it's giving you that security and allows you to really pick and choose.
I'd have a good
events.
weekend and I'd make quite a bit of money, and then I'd put some of that money into doing something else that week, and then I wouldn't make any money, and I'd just think, well, I could have just kept that money, and instead I've ploughed it into more food and more pitch fees, and now I've lost it. It's like gambling. It's like really. So I think with just having that job that just covers, all my bills are paid, and got a bit left over to fill the cupboards, and then anything I do with Buttercup now is a bonus, and I can be a bit more not picky in that sense, but I don't have to sort of force myself to go to things that I'm thinking, is it really worth it? So yeah, I do struggle with, I'm a bit of a fraud now.
I definitely wouldn't say so. There's lots of business owners who have some sort of employment as well and mix it up.
I think just when you go from working to being self-employed, it's like as if, you take this stand and I'm working for myself, and then to sort of go back on that. But I mean, it's been nearly 10 years, that I've worked for myself. So I think I'm allowed. How
do you find being employed after all that time? Is it difficult?
No, I thought maybe it would be. I've always sort of thought, because especially when I was with Universal Credit and I was trying to, get back open, my thing was never to sort of give up on in Llangollen, and I'm never going to work again. But they were trying to get me to look for jobs, and it was like, well, what jobs are there, like at the moment, that during COVID. But I did kind of worry at the time, well, what could I do? I just sort of, I don't think I could work for somebody else. But then I've done it, the guy that took over my place in Llangollen eventually took on the lease. I helped him for a bit in the kitchen, and I'm actually all right. I'm quite surprised that you'd think that being your own boss for so long, you'd really struggle. But maybe because I've been my own boss, I appreciate that if somebody's paying you, then you just do.
I think there's two ways of looking at it. Sometimes I think I couldn't go and work for someone else now, so I've worked for myself for too long. The other way is you have lots and lots and lots of bosses when you're self-employed, because all of your clients, all of your customers have that sort of
exactly.
that lean over.
And I mean,
don't they?
I'm sort of, anyone that knows me or knows of me knows that I'm notorious for having a bit of a gob.
No.
But that's only really become since I've been self-employed. And I know that maybe people think that it's a case of, I think I'm something special because I'm self-employed, but it's never been that. It's been, I've worked for so long in hospitality and been spoken to like rubbish, the clean version, that, and because I've worked for other people, I've always respected those people, and I never would have, sort of put them in a position where I've stood up for myself. And although a lot of the people I've worked for would always have said, you stand up for yourself, don't ever be treated like that. I've been lucky to have some good bosses, but I think just when I worked for myself and there were people just really being really rude and mouthy at me, it was just like, I've got nobody to.
So again, it's something about your industry that people do,
exactly.
don't they?
And I don't want to, I don't want to play the feminist card, because I don't, men and women are different, and they both have, you have your advantages of being either. But I have always found that being, a sole woman with her own business, a lot of sexism in the sense of, nobody realised that I worked really hard to get to that point, and I didn't have mummy and daddy money, or I did it, everything I got loans that, I did a massive business plan, and I'd really, really worked for it, and I deserved it when I got it, I'd worked hard enough to get it. And to just have this attitude of, you don't know what you're doing, or, I had comments of, well, you're not the owner, you can't possibly be the owner, or like, I want to speak to the manager, well, actually, and just, I think that just grinds on you after time, and you just think, I haven't worked my butt off to be spoken to like this. And I can remember there was one lad that not long after I'd opened Set the Bar that was complaining about, so he was in like a Friday night, he was complaining about all sorts of things, the price, the atmosphere, that there was no music on, and he said something really loudly like, oh, it's rubbish in here or whatever, it's cheaper in the horse and jockey, something like that. And I'd said, well, you know what you can do, mate. I literally said it like that, and he just went crazy and was like, I've never known such a rude barmaid in all my life. And I was like, for one, I'm not a barmaid. This is my place. But because I'd said that, and that just came off the tongue, but I didn't even mean that, because then he was like, oh, well, I didn't know it was your place. And I was like, yeah, but it doesn't matter. I shouldn't have said that, because it doesn't matter that it's my place. You shouldn't speak to anybody like that. You know, if it's a 15-year-old glass collector, you shouldn't speak to people like that. But it was just his attitude of, oh, well, if you're the owner, well, I'm sorry then. Well, no, like you shouldn't be like that anyway. And rude people are like drunk people. They will not accept that they're rude. They just.
And there's a lot of drunk people in your businesses, aren't
there? Well, yeah, exactly, yeah, both drunk and rude. But people say that, they say, oh, it's your own fault because you've opened a bar and you deal with drunk people. I've worked in bars all my life, and you're either rude or you're not. You're not rude because you're drunk. You're rude because you're a rude person, and maybe when you drink it brings it out.
Gives you the confidence.
Yeah,
to
exactly.
show
But
more.
I know a lot of people that can be hammered and are still not rude. It's a thing that you either are or you aren't, and unfortunately people won't be told when they are. And unfortunately I've always met rude people with not so much rudeness back, but just apathy of.
So you're still dealing with food, but you're probably not dealing with drunk people as much now, because it's more days and events.
Definitely probably something I don't.
Do you notice you get less rudeness as a result then?
Yeah, I mean, there's still always the thing with food. You know, everybody's a critic nowadays, but I definitely find that's less now that I'm in a caravan. I think maybe because people buy it and walk off. And they tend not to come back and go, that was rubbish. Sometimes people come back and say, oh, that was really nice. But yeah, maybe the whole thing of, there's just, I don't know, I just think, yeah, you're paying for food and you deserve to have a decent experience, but I don't know why people don't just vote with their feet. I don't know why everybody feels the need nowadays to have such a strong opinion and to really like bash somebody. You don't like it, then okay. Like and I've said that to people before, you know, well, I didn't like, okay. And that's not me saying I don't believe you, that's just saying, all right, fair enough, you don't like it.
I sometimes see people complaining about a business they've been to on Facebook, for example. And as a business owner, you look at it and you think, that's really hurtful to that person, because so much effort and, you know, with your finances and
people used to say,
your love and your care goes
business.
into a business, and someone will just criticise it.
For no constructive reason as well. Like, you know, that's the thing that you're not. I'd understand if you got food poisoning from somewhere, and you know, even that's subjective, isn't it? But say if that was a genuine thing, say you went out a party of 10 of you and 8 of you had food poisoning the next day, I could maybe understand actually you're warning people about that sort of thing. But anything else is an opinion, and you're entitled to that opinion, but people should be able to make their own opinion about things, and there's no need to hurt somebody, because people used to say it's a business, you shouldn't take it so personally, but it is.
You go into it
is personal. When you put everything into it, it is personal. I don't care what you say. That
and your business is a reflection on you,
exactly,
isn't it?
Yeah. When you're the
business is in your own model.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just frustrating, because it used to get me down, but people used to say to me, look, you've made a lot of friends and a lot of loyal customers from being you and doing what you do. So you're obviously doing it right for some people. You're just not doing it right, and you can't. There's no way that you can please everybody and keep everybody happy. And that's why I developed the thing of, okay, I appreciate your comments. It's not for you, but people want more than that. They want you to fall at their feet and it's like, well, you didn't like it, but other people like it. So what do you want me to do? And people just want more and more, don't they? They want this big reaction, but
you can't please all the people all the time.
I've definitely calmed down. But then, touch wood, I don't really get any bad reviews anymore. But I've just always had this thing of, you know, if you're entitled to your opinion, then I should be entitled to mine, you know, to respond to that, you know, and it shouldn't be a case of you just let people leave reviews for the sake of it and you know, don't defend yourself. But then you just get into, you know, I got to a point where, because I was responding to people were deliberately leaving reviews to get a rise out of me, and it just, you know, there was just nothing. As I say, you just sort of get in this slippery slope, don't you? But yeah, it's definitely now I'm mobile. Generally, people are nicer. Yeah, or you just don't see them.
So one thing some people might not know is you and your business is a bit of a TV star, aren't you? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so when I decided to buy this caravan, well, as I say, originally I wanted a ready-made unit. We'd seen a caravan that would be made into a coffee trailer in Bridgnorth on eBay. We decided to go and have a look at it. I was in communication with the guy who was selling it, said we're likely to buy it. Got 10 minutes away from Bridgnorth, he rings me and says somebody's bought it on eBay. Hasn't come to see it, but it's just, I think he had like a buy it now price. Had bought it. We were like, we're 10 minutes away. And he was like, oh, I don't know what to do. He said, but, you know, and I said, oh, well, if it falls through, just give me a ring. So went home, and then I was in a sulk then, because I do that. If I kept my mind set on something and I can't have it, I get annoyed. But I was just scrolling through Facebook, and there was another caravan literally down the road from where I live. I went to see it, and it was a wreck, but fell in love with it. And it was £400. So I was like, I'm having it. But as I say, originally the intention was to have something that was ready done, but this was nowhere near ready done. But my brother is very hands-on, and he paints cars, and he does all sorts of little bits. So it was like, come on, between us, we can do it. So we went and picked it up. So then I got home when we bought it. I was showing my boyfriend pictures of it, and he said, "Oh, you wanna see if you can go on Amazing Spaces?" And then we were like, ha 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 ha. And then, gosh, we fill a form in. So they just went on the website, and they happened to be casting at that point.
So this is George Clarke's Amazing
George
Spaces.
Clarke's Amazing Spaces, yeah, Channel 4. Filled in this form, put some pictures. Bit funny, sort of. And then that was on a Sunday night, and then the Tuesday morning, I just got this phone call, and it was, oh, this is casting from George Clarke's Amazing Spaces. And I was like, it's a joke. And she said, oh, we'd like to know more about the story and about the thing. So I was like, oh, okay. But then, because I'd put, so that, you know, this is TV as we know it in the 21st century, isn't it? Because I'd sort of put in the very brief description on the form that I'd basically had to give my business up, partly due to COVID, but partly due to family circumstances. They were very interested in the
If it was a story, yeah.
family circumstances side of it. So she said, can you elaborate on that? So I did, and I think that's where it's come from. They like the sort of the story, because I mean they filmed, because that was in the February, and then they said, well, we definitely want to feature you, but we can't start filming until the end of April. So can you just not do anything? You should not do anything until the end of April, because we want to see it in its original form before we, while you work on it. So yeah, okay. So I just didn't do anything. And they came and filmed. I mean, you know, it was a great thing. It was only one girl with a camera on her shoulder, and it was all very informal, and you know, she was lovely, and she just asked questions, and then they just filmed like every bit. So it would be, you know, a case of, right, what are you doing this week? Right, we'll come and film that. And there was hours of footage, which ends up being 15 minutes of screen time. So it turned out they didn't really feature much of the actual build, as they call it. It was more the story.
Your story.
The story. So all the things they were filming me where I was looking really incompetent, I was quite glad that, because I've always been quite good at DIY and painting and handy little things. But when there's a camera in your face and they're asking you really personal questions, and you're painting a blackboard, and then they're just like, keep painting. So you're talking for half an hour painting this same piece of a blackboard because of the continuity. I was just thinking, people are just going to think I haven't got a clue people are going to look at this caravan at the end and be like, she hasn't done that. But I genuinely did. I did, apart from painting the outside, I did all of it, you know. But if they'd have included most of the things they'd filmed, you'd never have believed it in a million years that it was me that did it, because I just looked.
So that TV program, did it positively impact your business? Was it a big marketing tool? And
yeah, definitely. I mean, I didn't realise
how
how many people watched it, really. I've sort of seen it, you know, occasionally, but I was never really massively into it. But yeah, it's amazing that even now I still get at least once when I'm somewhere, when I'm anywhere, I get, were you on telly? So I mean, people, it's weird, because I was at the Wrexham Lager Festival, and there was a girl that had said, I was chatting to her for a bit, and then she was like, oh, wait a minute, weren't you on George Clarke's Amazing Spaces? And I was like, oh yeah. And she went, yeah, I thought I recognised you. And I went, you recognise me? And I'm literally in my yellow caravan. And she's like, I recognise you. And I was like, you didn't recognise this? She was like, no. What? But okay, yeah, fine. But yeah, so it's definitely, I've got inquiries through it, sort of, more sort of things on social media and stuff. And
is the episode still available?
yeah, so it's it went out in January this year, so it's series 11, episode 1.
And it's on the Channel 4 app.
I keep saying 4OD. It's not been 4OD for a long time.
No.
All four.
All 4.
Yeah.
That's the one.
So yeah, it's, it was nice to kind of have that, because there's probably, a lot of people know me, but probably don't know the whole sort of background of it and, how we've got to where we are today. So it was nice to kind of have that put across that.
Okay. And then I know you're not just attending street markets, you're organising markets at the moment as well.
Yeah, that's kind of happened organically, accidentally. I'm not sure which word's best.
Is that to create yourself somewhere to trade from?
Originally, just I was doing because Nigel Lewis used to do the street markets years ago before COVID, and then started them up again. I want to say early last year. I don't know if you've done them before that. Early last year was when I knew about it. So I'd do them whenever I wasn't booked. So that I think they were the second Saturday of the month at the time, and I'd do them if I wasn't already booked somewhere else. I mean, I'd always choose to do them, but there were some months I'd already got other, previous bookings. So and they were, I always did well at them. There weren't too many stalls. I think Nigel had a lot of other things going on, so it was quite difficult for him to drum up the stalls. And unfortunately, Wrexham's got a bad name still, and it is. I found myself, it's very difficult to get people to take a punt and come and do a market. So they were on Hembler Street by...
Disappointing given our market heritage, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And so they didn't really have the natural, where they were, they didn't have the natural footfall. I can understand why he did them on Hembler Street, because it was kind of driving traffic that way, but people don't go down that way, so I think people didn't, people had said, I didn't even know you were here. So he stepped down in December last year. He said, I haven't got the time to organise them anymore. So myself and a couple of other traders that were always there had said, and sort of spoken to Nigel and said, do you think we can carry them on? And he was like, yeah, he gave us the right contacts and that. And but then it was very, there was a few, and we were having meetings about it and everything, and we couldn't sort of confirm a date or anything, and then I just took over, which
it's the gob again.
just a case of everybody else has got jobs, as I think is the point. Everybody else already does something else, and I was the only one that had a lot of kind of, at the time, free time to do it, because this is before I was working, and it was just kind of like, I'm going to do it now then. Are you, I didn't just sort of go behind people's back. It was all discussed, and it was like, am I okay to go and do this now then?
Okay.
Do you know where we were up to?
Yeah, just
Taking over.
market, yeah, so you want to start again, no, just go.
I don't know, what do you want? What do you want us to do?
You can start from where you were saying about taking it over.
Okay. Yeah, cool.
Okay, just a second, you're ready.
Yep. Right. So I made sure that everybody was okay with it. I didn't sort of just go mad, but it was like, we need to get this in now, otherwise it's going to be summer, and then we're not going to have any markets. So we started them in. I did a plant-based one in February while everybody was making their minds up, and that did quite well. It was like the first market I'd organised, but I knew quite a lot of other plant-based traders, so I kind of just called in a favour and said, oh, are you coming? And we had like something like 17, 18 stalls, so it was a nice little, for February it was a nice little market. And then I thought, actually this is quite easy. So went ahead, and then the first one was in April, and then they've just been every month. So we started off with a few, I think we maybe had sort of 15, 20 traders to begin with, which were mainly made up of the ones that had been doing Nigel Lewis's markets, and then managed to find a few more, but I just sort of got out there and went to other markets and asked people, but it was a struggle because, as I say, people were, I'm not going to Wrexham, because I think with the Monday market being so poorly attended, there's literally a few stalls there,
that's all that people have in their head, that the Monday market.
But you know what? For someone who like works in the town centre, Monday is the quietest day in town, isn't it? By a long way.
Yeah, exactly. And
it's just on the wrong day.
it's one of the, yeah, that's the thing. It's like as if they're very stubborn in keeping it the Monday market. But if it was another day, I know everybody's saying, why isn't it on a Saturday? But we couldn't have one every Saturday. It would, people would just get bored of it. But if it was maybe a later day in the week, then it might be busier. But it is very much the chicken and the egg. It's how do you, you've got to get traders, but then traders aren't going to come if there's no customers, but then customers aren't going to come if there's no traders. So it is just this really, this vicious cycle. And I struggled with that in the beginning of getting people, and because we haven't booked them until quite late, anybody that sort of was keen to come and do it was already booked in for a lot of events over the summer, so a lot of them couldn't start till September anyway. So it's just happened, as I say, quite organically. I never intended this time last year.
So when's your market on?
First Saturday of the month.
First Saturday of the month. How many traders do you reckon you get on average?
We're getting sort of 35 to 40 every month now.
And you're on Queen Square?
Queen Square, yeah.
So we always end up with the same 3 questions for everybody. So the first one is, what does success look like for you?
I think just, I mean, a lot of people determine it as money, don't they? I don't see it like that.
No one's answered with money yet.
No, oh, good.
They might be thinking about it, but no one said it.
No, I just think, I just want to be happy and comfortable, not struggling to pay bills. I mean, as a family, we've been there. I mean, my mum moved to Coventry when I was 7. We moved to Coventry when I was 7, from Wrexham. She got a job in the university there, and we struggled some months, and some months she'd be a bit flush and we'd have treats, and then some months, we used to have a TV that you'd have to put £1 in it that was how you paid to rent it. We struggled, and then we had some months where we had a bit more money and we'd go and have a treat and we'd go out. And I just always kind of had that philosophy of, I just want to be able to pay my bills, maybe have a little bit of money sometimes for some treats. I wouldn't ever expect to be or want to be rich, and it's not really important to me.
If someone was starting a business and they approached you as someone who's been going since 2014, if you had one piece of advice you could give them, what would that be?
I'm joking. I am joking. No, I think...
Not really the aim of this podcast.
I think, as I was saying about working part-time, I feel like a failure, but I think everybody's going to try it once, and you can always just go and get a job if you don't like it or it doesn't work for you. If you've got that opportunity to become self-employed and start a business, then don't let the fear stop you, because the only thing that would stop you from going back on it, I suppose you could say, is your own pride. I think is that like it was with me. I couldn't possibly get a job because I'd be a failure, but you've got to try it. And some it's not necessarily for everybody, but I definitely think it's something that is worth doing. And I think that the one piece of advice that I would give is to just look at every angle, because even when I took on Set the Bar, I set it up as a company, and I remember my mum going mad at me at the time because I'd gone into a solicitor's office and said, what happens if it doesn't work? What do I do? And it was, you would liquidate a company. If you had assets, you'd have to declare bankruptcy. And my mum was like, I can't believe you're thinking about failing. And I was saying, but I have to, because I don't want to just get into this thing and then what do I do? You've got to have every sort of get out clause. And again, that's not a failure. It's not having confidence in yourself. It's just, your options then, don't you? And hopefully it doesn't ever come to that.
So spotlight's been on you for this episode. And now it's time to shine the Wrexham business spotlight onto one other business.
I was supposed to think about this, wasn't I? There's too many.
So we're going to ask you to pick one other business that you think deserves a mention, a bit of praise. Could be another market trader, a friend, a customer, supplier. As long as they're from Wrexham, we'll take them.
Oh my. It's very difficult for me because I've got, we've got this market community now, and everybody, especially the regular traders, they're all, so it's such a lovely community, and everybody works really hard, and everybody's there every month, pretty much, at least when they can be, and I really appreciate that, and I don't really want to pick
one of those traders, because they genuinely all are brilliant, and I really appreciate them, because I get a lot of praise for doing this Wrexham market, but I couldn't, it's not successful only because of me, it's successful because of all the people that have stuck with it. But I'm going to say one of our traders, Sian, whose business is called Loopy Delights, she makes all sorts of kooky sort of stuff, handbags and little gloves and little angel wings that you put on your trainer laces and stuff. And she's great. She's a mum of 5. She's got the most gorgeous kids you've ever come across. They're just amazing. They're so polite and so lovely, and she works really hard, and it's her business. She doesn't do it on the side, and she just does everything she can. She does as many markets as she can. She's done every single one of ours. She's there, rain or shine. She's really supportive. She's really brilliant. So yeah, I'd like to sort of say her, because.
Okay, great.
But I still love all of the others.
I'm sorry for making you victimise all your other regular traders.
Yeah, no, it is genuinely. I'm not just saying that. It's really hard to pick somebody, because they're all, as I say, it would be nothing without. You can't. One person doesn't make a market, and as much as I get praise for doing it, because it has become a part-time job, basically, another part-time job, because it takes up a lot of my time, but it's not just my work, it's everybody sticking with it. And even on the days, like in August, it just rained all day and we barely had many traders. A lot couldn't come because it was just too wet, but a few did, and there were still people about, and it's because of people like that it's built up to what it is now, because people have stuck with it and had faith. So yeah.
Okay.
Loopy Delights.
Sian from Loopy Delights.
Yes.
So Fern, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank
It's
you
been a
for
really
having
good
me.
chat. It's been really interesting. Learn your story of how you developed your business to what you're doing now and the challenges you faced. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate
I
it.
hope it's been insightful.
It has. Excellent.
No matter how high you fly, no matter how far you go, the spotlight's on you when we go Wrexham home.
Hello everybody, it's Adrian here. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Wrexham Business Spotlight podcast. It's very much appreciated. Please also support our guests and their wonderful businesses. You can like and subscribe to this. You could share the podcast so your friends can enjoy it. And you could also find us on social media, on Facebook and Instagram. Leave your comments, leave your thoughts, and let us hear your feedback. Thank you very much, and see you on the next episode.